This is the There Is Another Way podcast from SpencerBruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hi there, boys and girls. Brucey here, and welcome to this week's There Is Another Way podcast. I hope you, your friends and family are all safe and well at the moment. In this week's podcast, I'm going to be answering a question that came in from long-term listener, one of my great friends and guest on the podcast, Hal Weaver. You may be aware that I have been running a challenge to myself since the beginning of 2020, and that challenge is called 52 Fridays. And what the challenge involves is, very simply, every Friday, writing one new piece of music and doing one short little film that I put out on YouTube without fail every Friday. And of course, by the end of the year, I will have 52 of them. If you followed the podcast or you know me, you know that I always setting these kind of creative challenges. A couple of years ago, I did a daily creation challenge where I actually did a similar thing. I wrote a piece of music every single day for a year and a half. It was a little bit intense. A lot of good things came out of it. And it's one of those things I really recommend doing. One of the things that I find really interesting about the whole project was that for a year and a half, I managed to write a new piece of music every single day. And then for ages, I wasn't able to write anything, not because I had a creative block or anything. It's just that you get out of the habit of it. And it's important that these things become a habit. Now, whilst this podcast this week, I'm going to talk about the process. Hal's question was, what is your process? What do you go through when creating these pieces of music? Multi-dimensional, it's multifaceted. So I'm going to go through that in the podcast today. But what I wanted to also mention is that you can apply this regardless of your discipline. Whilst I'm probably going to be talking about music, because it's obviously a music and visual project, all of the things that I'm doing can apply to whatever art form it is that you are undertaking, whatever your creative flow is, be it photography, be it graphic design, be it advertising, be it marketing. And you can also apply some of this to your business. But underlying all of this is a notion that it's something that becomes a habit. That is the crucial element of this. Some of the work might be rubbish, some of the work might be great. It doesn't matter. It's just a habit. Before I jump in to describe the process, let me just explain a little bit more about the project. As I've said, 52 Fridays. The tagline is one new film, one new piece of music every Friday for a year. Now, I made a couple of rules, and if you are about to embark on a challenge like this, or whatever the challenge may be, it's also crucial to make some little rules for yourself. So one of the rules that I decided is that obviously I'm going to put this piece of music out on social media. It goes out on YouTube every single week, and then I distribute that to my other channels. One of the stipulations of the music is that it has to be over a minute and a half. That is one of the simple rules that I set myself. It has to be over a minute and a half and has to go out every Friday. With my daily creation challenge, the rule there was slightly different. The rule there was I had to write a piece of music that was 30 seconds to a minute in length. No longer, no shorter. And it had to be posted on my website by 12 o'clock of the evening of the day. Those were the little rules. And of course, you can make whatever rules up that you want to make. In this case, the rule was, and it was the only rule I really have, is that it has to be greater than 1.5 minutes, because that is the challenge here, is wanting to write music and wanting to produce music. Writing a 30-second piece of music is a real skill. If you've ever done any advertising music, you'll know that it's really hard. But I wanted to push the boundaries to make something which was a bit more, had a bit of a longer form, and needed me to really push myself to write a whole minute and a half of music, which again, to some of you may not seem like a lot of music, but it can actually be quite tricky to do that. So with the rules aside, I also put myself in the mindset that whilst I'm sharing this on my YouTube channel, the videos are going up, I also wanted to not have any strict rules about what the music would be. And ultimately, whilst I'm sharing this project with the public, it's very much a personal project. It's very much from me to explore the form of music and the form of film. Now, let me just take an aside to tell you a little bit about the film. When I started out, I had great visions of what I would be doing with the film. Now, something occurred in March. We all know what occurred, the awful C word, which meant we were locked down. So that kind of put a little bit of a dampener on some of the projects I had planned for the filming because I was ultimately locked down. On the plus point, it meant I had to work with very limited resources and try to make something which I thought was relatively interesting to me from around either the house or the garden. And that also led me on to looking at the ideas of being able to experiment with the form. And as I said, most of this is very personal. It's very much from me. I really love it when people love the stuff that I'm doing, but that is not the reason for doing this project. It's very much for me to keep my skills up, get a habit forming, prove that you can do this every week, you can put out music. And then when I get into the doldrums of struggling with other music projects, either personal projects or other people's projects, and go, I can do this. I did it every week for a year. It's not a problem. Just knuckle down, form the habit, get it working. The films have been a little bit house-centric, or using footage that I had previously from travels around the world. So it's actually a good way of going back through my archives and finding little interesting nuggets of films and things that I really liked that hopefully fitted the music that I have created. Hopefully now with lockdown easing, I should be able to go out and now start doing a little bit more filming in association with the project. Back to Hal's question, what is the process? The process I have been going through is, as I said before, kind of multidimensional, and there is no one fixed process that I am using. What I am looking at this project as is also a way of going through a lot of the gear and equipment I have and using it. Some things that I've not used for a while. So that is what I would say is idea concept number one. It's going around, looking around my studio, going, well, I haven't used that guitar pedal for a while. I haven't used this synthesizer for a while. I haven't used these bits of gear for a while. So I'm going to write a song which features this piece of equipment. And that's it. That's the kind of the starting point. That was what I would label as concept one. So of course you could apply this to, again, whatever your art or discipline is what have you got around you that you maybe haven't used, maybe want to use, maybe want to try out? Again, a slight aside there. Obviously, I have a lot of stuff here, but maybe I don't use it on a day-to-day projects, and I really want to use it. And this has been a great chance to use that equipment. This also ties into something else which has been happening this year, which has been I've been doing a big detox. And if you watch my YouTube channel, you'll see I've done a number of videos on my digital detox and also my studio detox and clear out. So it's really helped inform the things that I want to keep and the things that I want to get rid of. So 52 Fridays is helping me clear out stuff because I'm forcing myself to look at the things that I have and go actually pulling out cupboards, go, I haven't used that for a long time and I don't feel like I want to use it. So that's going to go on the sale list. Or this pedal I haven't used for a while. I never got a chance to really play with it because, or use it in a context. Now's my chance to actually use this piece of gear and get the most out of it. The same goes for, and again, we're getting a little bit technical now musically, but plugins, or virtual instruments, which are instruments which run on your computer, or pieces of hardware are actually software equivalents of the hardware. I have a ton of those. I've wanted to clear them out for ages, and part of this process of going through and looking every week, I've not used that one. Let me see if I can use it in this project. Oh, maybe it's not really what I want. I can quickly delete it, or I can go, okay, this whole piece, this Friday is going to be based on this piece of equipment. Talking about equipment and gear, again, during lockdown, whilst I am having a big clear out, the hypocrisy is I've obviously bought a few new things just to cheer you up a little bit, and some new bits of gear have come out, and it's like, I really want to try that out. So this is, again, a great chance for me when I've got 1 or 2 new pieces of gear to go. This week, I'm going to use this new piece of gear on this project. Think about whatever your discipline is, whether it be art. Have you got again, I'm going to trip up myself here because I'm not an expert in these other forms, but have you got a whole bunch of pencils if you're an artist that you aren't using? Try a different pencil. Try using a pen to draw, or whatever it is. Try using charcoal. Whatever it is that you feel like you want to have the chance to experiment with and use, just do it. Set up a little challenge and then say, I'm going to do a new piece of art every week, and I'm going to use a different medium or a different paintbrush or a different style. If you're a photographer, you're going to use the lens that I don't use very often. What I would also say is, and something that I constantly tell my students, we go through a limitation exercise, and it is actually making the most with the limited amount of gear. And whatever profession you're in, you probably use the gear within a certain range. I always encourage you, people, like particularly with music gear, you can obviously see this is probably a little bit easier, but turn everything up. For example, turn all the knobs up. And I'm not talking that's going to necessarily mean loudness. I'm not talking about distortion pedals or things like that, but other things which do other things. Just find out the extremes of the equipment. And again, I'm not saying go out there and break it, but obviously these things have extreme settings, which maybe extreme is the wrong words, but what I mean by is extreme on the scale. Could you whack the aperture up on your camera and try and take some pictures with that? What do you get? Is it different from what you normally do? Push the boundaries of the bits of equipment you have, and you'll probably discover that there is a sweet spot that you may have not found already, or B, there's a new technique, or it makes you think in a new way about the equipment and about what you're trying to do. You might, again, thinking about photography, imagine that you always use a wide aperture. Try going down to f11 and everything is suddenly sharp and in focus. Does that change the way you take pictures? Does that change the way you think about the picture? There are countless other examples, whatever your art form or whatever your creative form is. So that is kind of concept one, is going through the gear that I have, the gear that I don't use very often, and giving it purpose, giving it life, allowing it to speak on a track, and forcing myself to use that piece of equipment. So concept 2 kind of follows on from that. It's looking at techniques, and the concept isn't that wildly different from the first concept, but it's a way of, particularly maybe with music, I'm sure this is equally applicable to any other creative art form. I was very fortunate to have a very extensive music education, but I still gravitate to the things that I do. And that kind of frustrates me a little bit. So 52 Fridays has been a great chance to jump in and start using musical techniques, things from my musical theory background that I don't often use. It's kind of pushing myself into new directions. It's pushing myself to use techniques that I haven't necessarily used before. And again, one of the things I have been doing is, flicking through an old textbook and going, I haven't, used negative harmony in something before. I'm going to try and apply that to this week's. So 52 Fridays is also a great refresher, but also a great learning exercise. It kind of go, I didn't really ever understand this technique, but I'm going to force myself to do it in this piece of music and see what comes up. It also, as I said, is a refresher. And if we go to this week's piece, which I've called Wonder, I realised that I haven't done any 4-part harmony writing for quite a while, and I spent a long time, part of my life, studying this and using it. So I haven't really used that in a orchestral sense for a while. So I'm going to do that. I've written some string parts and a piano part, so relatively simple. Again, I didn't have a lot of time to this, so this is not going to set the orchestral world on fire. It's not a masterpiece, and I'm sure if I sat down and looked at it, there's lots of technical errors in there that, again, a teacher, and myself being a music teacher, would tell me off for, such as parallel fifths and octaves and all these things which Bach would frown upon. Again, it was proof of concept and a refresher and a chance to do something which I should be able to do, and I wanted to see how it turned out. And feedback on this track already has been quite positive, more so than some of the other stuff that I've put out. What I'll also say is, again, not every track is for everybody. I've done some experimental stuff in there. I've done some kind of soundscapey, minimalist stuff along the lines of Steve Reich or John Cage, things that really excite me and inspire me, and maybe not what is popular amongst some of my listeners. Which takes me on to looking at styles, and the third concept is actually looking at people who I admire and respect and have done, and trying to mimic their style a little, and looking at current styles. You know, the lo-fi genre is really popular now, something I've never really tried to do, so it was an opportunity to try something stylistically. So I picked a style, and it's like, I'm going to try and emulate that, perhaps in my own little way. Obviously, again, or maybe not obviously, but I haven't obviously got a lot of time to do this. I am trying to squeeze it into a short space of time. So it's a really good learning exercise to try and do some things relatively quickly. It gives you a sense of positivity about your skills when you can kind of adapt things and work things. Again, this is all a matter of taste. It is good to go, I've got 2 hours to put this out, and I've got to do a film as well. What am I going to do? How can I push myself? I want to do it in this style. What are the elements of this style? Can I jump around my system, my studio, and create this? How am I going to do it? So it's really pushing you, and it's really pushing your skills. To me, that's been one of the real benefits of doing this project, is to, again, push yourself to use skills you haven't used for a while, to develop new skills, to develop the skills that you already have. So it's a great educational and learning exercise. As a result of it, at the end of the year, I'll have 52 pieces of music. Now, I am putting all these music out as separate CDs, so they're coming out in seasons. We've got winter and spring are already released, so if you do want to hear them, please do either head over to YouTube or go down to Spotify or whatever your listening platform of choice is. You will find the Light Before Sound 52 Fridays. Up until this point, we've done spring and winter. Obviously, we are now into summer, so summer will be coming probably in another couple of weeks, probably about another 6 weeks before summer gets released. Again, I'll be interested to hear any feedback. I'm putting them out there, and they are kind of raw, sometimes a little bit unpolished. Again, it's about the art. And what I hope to discover at the end of the year is that there are particular pieces, and I'm going to say not every single piece will be there, but maybe 1 or 2 pieces that I would like to develop further. one or two pieces which is like stylistically something I may or may not have done before, and going, actually, I really want to try this style for my next project. Having said that, I already have 2 album projects in the bag, more on that soon, but one of them is called Edgelands. Edgelands was quite a grand scoped project. It was both a music, or both an album and a visual piece. Of course, COVID has put a complete stop to that for the time being, because it relies on going to quite a few places to grab footage and shoot things. So that will be postponed until 2021, but it will be coming out. So if you're interested, do keep your eyes on the channels. But at the moment, if you want to head over to my YouTube channel, please do, or my Spotify channel, and give things a listen and let us know what you think. So those are kind of like the 3 concepts to get the ideas. I've also, not really a concept as such, but one of the difficult things to address is obviously the ups and downs, how you feel every week. And to me, this is going to make an interesting diary, recollection of this very, very strange year and my thoughts, feelings and emotions. And I think that is also coming out in the work. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. And that is evidenced by, I feel, more than anything, what the output is every week. So it is almost like quite scarily a snapshot of my own internal feelings throughout the whole year. And hopefully there's going to be a lot more positive stuff coming out over the next couple of weeks and months as, finger crossed, things return a bit more to normal. I have sometimes used the concept of a word, where it's whatever the word I'm feeling at that point in time has become the seed for whatever it is I'm going to be writing that day. So I'll put that down as concept number 4. So in terms of process, all I am doing is picking one of these ideas, using one of these concepts, sitting down, blank screen. With regards to the video, sometimes I have the video beforehand and know that I'm going to be writing to that piece of video. On other occasions, so this is about 50-50, I've actually written the piece of music first, and then I said either gone and shot something in the garden or around the house, or try to be experimental with the footage that I already have. The actual music writing process is literally a case of, I've got a set amount of time to do this. I've got basically one day, and I have all my other duties and work responsibilities to do, so I can't allow it to dictate too much. So that really puts the pressure on. And funnily enough, it is so liberating, because you just sit there and you do it. And that is something I've discussed before on the podcast. Again, something I always shout at my students. Sometimes when you have that deadline, you just do it. So I'm not sure if that really answers your question there, Hal, but the thing is giving yourself a deadline, you just end up doing things. Now, we all set ourselves deadlines and we all tend to let ourselves down. I don't know why sometimes this kind of thing, maybe because it's more public. Now there's an expectation. We're on week 32. And whilst, again, this isn't setting the world on fire in terms of views and people's interest, I feel like I will be letting down the people who are engaged in the project and who are watching the project. So that is my deadline. That is my motivation. Sometimes with other projects, when you set yourself deadlines, but there's no one really breathing down your neck to do it, go on forever. Which leads me to my guitar album, which is going on forever, but that's also nearly finished. So there you have it. I hope that kind of answers your question. If you've got any more questions, if anyone has any questions, please do drop over to the Facebook group. There is Another Way podcast. Leave your thoughts, comments, questions, and I will do my best to answer them. Also, be really interested to hear your process. What is your process? So over to you, Hal. Maybe you want to drop by the Facebook group and leave us a little message on how you approach your fantastic artwork, your sculpting. And maybe how some of the things I've discussed might help you. I'd be really interested to know that. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, please do stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. I've been Brucey, and I will catch you very soon. Take care, my friends.